What's up guys, it's Stabz McKenzie from Dragon Champions Journey, and I'm here to bring you our tier list. So we're going to be telling you which characters we think are the best and you should be investing in. So we're going to rank them, starting with S-Class. S-Class is going to be the best class. These are going to be the absolute best of the best. A-Class means that they're, well above average. B, slightly above average. C, average. And D, you're probably going to want to stay away from these characters. So the sources I'm going to use to create this tier list are beadc.info, and I'm going to use their tier list, but in addition to that, I'm going to use my guild's experience and my personal experience. So there's going to be a few differences, and I'm going to give you my opinion where that varies. First up is Solius. Solius is going to be our first legendary character, and for that reason, and when you take a look at his kit, I truly believe that he's going to be the best character in the game, and he's going to be faction defining. He might take humans to being the best faction in the game until we see our next legendary. So for that reason, we're going to rate Solius as an S-Class hero. The only other hero to make it into the S-Class is Hardork. Hardork makes it in because he is the best support in the game by far, but you won't be able to invest in him until later on, because he can only be gotten in the Star Shop. The Star Shop is where you convert hero stones for your 7-star characters because you can't increase their star level anymore. So as soon as you're able to do that, absolutely invest in Hardork. He's going to be a great investment because not only is he going to be an absolute staple on an orc team, but it'll help you unlock Solius. Our first A-class hero is going to be Kiara. Kiara is an absolute unit. With my hands-on experience of her, she has been dealing insane amounts of damage in the Aerochar raid and as well as in arena, in tower. She's an absolute staple, especially when you pair her with Venomate. So paired up with her massive damage and her ability to spread very powerful buffs and her attack synergy with Venomite, Kiara is going to be our first A-class hero. Next up is Patriarch Qi. Patriarch Qi is an awesome character. You can use him in a Panda squad, which is where he's probably going to be the most useful, but because of his shield healer synergy, you can use him with various healers in lots of plug and play situations and be extremely effective with him. So for those reasons, we're going to give Patriarch Qi an A rating. Nightiel is our next A-rank character. Nightiel is an amazing character. Well, her basic does go through shields. That's not the reason why you want to use her. Her second ability has an ability block that works 100% of the time, and she has a lot of synergy with Solius, where she's going to remove extra buffs from your opponent as well as dispel buffs on your team. So she is really good for that reason. Nightiel is a little difficult to get though, so you're going to have to be patient and wait to invest in her until later on in the game. Our next A-class hero is Snorry. Snorry is absolutely amazing because of his Berserk stance, which gives him a bonus 25% crit chance and 40 speed when it's all maxed out. So he's going to be going constantly. In addition to that, it also gives him turn meter. And he has an AoE bleed ability, so he's going to have synergy with characters like Revol and Freezard. Our last A-rank hero is Kinley. Now, I've never played Kinley. I'm trying to unlock him, but I can tell you that my experience when I fight him in tower or arena is that this guy is an absolute beast. And when you pair him with someone like Xantara who can give him counterattack, he becomes absolutely annoying. Kinley also has a lot of synergy with Patriarch Qi, so when they're paired together, they are an absolutely unstoppable duo. Xantara is an outstanding character, and that's why we're going to rate her as our first B character. She heals herself on her basic, she has an AoE heal ability, she is just a great character. And in addition to that, she can reduce the cooldowns on herself and an ally on every single turn. So for that reason, Xantara is going to be our first B character. Revol is going to be our next B character. Revol is absolutely astonishing because he makes your opponent bleed on his basic, he has a massive AoE damage, and he has an ability where if your opponent is bleeding, he gains 75% of his turn meter. In addition to that, every bleed that's on the field is going to increase Revol's damage by 25%. So this guy is a monster. An absolute offensive monster. So invest in this character as soon as you can. You will not regret it. Our next hero is Hera. Hera is similar to Revol, except she just deals a bit less damage, but has a bit more support opportunities. Hera is the best Pride leadership option, especially when paired with Salvador, because she's going to give him a pre-taunt. So for that reason, we're going to rate Hera as our next B champion. Our next B character is Freezard. Freezard is a very, very good option early on because you get that pack for only $2 and you get a 4-star character. I cannot recommend doing that enough because for that cost, what you're going to get is a relatively high damage mage with some AoE opportunities that reduce turn meter and slow down your opponent. That's absolutely something that's totally worthwhile. So for that reason, we're going to rate Freezard as a B. Our next hero is Puncherface. Puncherface comes in as a B hero, and I think he comes in underrated. I love Puncherface. Puncherface has an AoE ability that inflicts taunt on all of your opponents. So when they have those taunt walls up behind Kinley and all those big guys, you're going to be able to attack all the squishy healers like Alyria because they're all going to be taunting. He's awesome because his passive also gives him speed and his secondary attack has a chance to give him a speed buff on hit. So Puncherface is totally awesome, underrated, comes in at a B. Next up is the Supreme Kagan himself. He comes in at a very high B because he gets a stun on his basic and that is just incredibly powerful, especially when you pair it with his taunt and counter attack. So every time your opponent is forced to use an ability, he's going to hit Tromgar and Tromgar is going to hit him right back and have a chance to take away his turn with that stun. Tromgar's leadership is also extremely powerful, giving bonus tenacity and potency to the orcs. And every time your orcs apply a debuff, all of your orcs are going to heal 5% of their HP. And Sergeant Pigwald is our last B-rated character because he might be the highest damage dealing character in the game. His ability to charge gives him 3 times damage on his next attack, and when you pair that with his basic ability, he can deal up to 310% damage if the opponent is below 50% health. So his damage output can be relatively insane. So for those reasons, Sergeant Pigwald comes in as our last B. Next up is Eric Shieldbreaker. He's our first C champion. He's an interesting character because he has relatively high damage and a support ability that applies debuff immunity to all of your allies. So he's an interesting character. He's worth investing in. You're not going to regret putting some points into him, putting some gear on him, but don't go nuts on him, and I'd wait to save him for a Solius team because that's where he's really going to shine. Why is he going to shine? Because he's going to be counterattacking half the time because of that Solius leadership. Next up is Alyria. Alyria is an order healer who has an amazing ability. Her ability is an AoE heal that heals everyone on the team. In addition to that, her third ability deals magic damage, and then half of that damage heals the lowest HP'd ally on the team. So Alyria is a very good character, worth investing in. It comes in at a very high C. Next up is Venomate. Venomate is a very, very good character, especially with his synergy with Kiara. He could possibly rank higher on this list, but because he's so dependent on Kiara, we're going to keep him at a C. Now, his ability What's Your Poison is very, very good because it applies a lot of buffs to a single target and gives it 75% turn meter. But the most important buff is going to be counter attack. So you can give that to someone who has an attack on hit effect that you really want to be applied to the other team, such as like a Tromgar who can stun on attack, or like a Venomate who can counterattack with a poison. Next up is Salvador. Salvador is one of the best tanks in the game. He is extremely hard to kill. The problem is that's all he does. He doesn't really do anything beyond that. Yes, being tanky is all Salvador does. If you look at his basic, it just deals physical damage. His second ability taunts, his third ability gives him bonus armor, and his fourth ability gives him bonus armor. So Salvador, while he is extremely tanky, lacks any utility beyond that. So for that reason, we're going to rate him at a C. Korkhrim is a pretty good mage. The problem with Korkhrim though is that he's very debuff dependent. His basic does apply burning, and his second ability has a chance to apply stun to all enemies, so that's extremely powerful. And then his third ability deals massive damage if your enemy is both burning and stunned. So while Korkhrim may have some bonus damage and some utility, he relies on that pretty heavily, so you might want to be careful when you use him. But something that is interesting is that if you have his AoE ready from a previous run on the tower, it can save an entire run, because you're going to start the run by using this AoE, and it has a very, very good chance to stun your enemies, so it's going to give you a huge advantage. So definitely keep that in mind. And I got that tip at beadc.info. You should definitely visit it, because that's where you're going to find all the information you need to be a dragon champion. Alright guys, so this is the one that I'm the most uncomfortable with. Little Batty is going to come in at a C, and that kind of hurts me, because I really want to rate her at a B, but all the information that everyone has been giving me has been telling me that she's not that great in certain scenarios. But her basic ability has an 80% chance to remove turn meter. That is so awesome. And then she has a passive cheat death. The first time she dies, she's going to come back with a shield. So I think this character is a bit of a sleeper, but I'm going to have to wait to unlock her before I can give you guys a more deep analysis. So for that reason, I'm going to have to trust the experts, and I'm going to rate her at a C. I had a hard time placing Rantha as well, but we ended up rating her as a C, because Battle Poo is not that tanky, and that really does hurt her kit. But Rantha's third ability is very powerful, especially when there's only 1 or 2 targets on the battlefield. They're going to take massive damage from Rantha. And her leadership ability is relatively generic with her clan's bonuses, so she makes a pretty decent leader. So definitely keep Rantha in mind. For those reasons, we're going to rate her at a C. Master Duo is our next character, and he's going to come in at a C. Master Duo is a very powerful character in some regards. He has the ability to apply regeneration to himself and one other character. In addition to that, he applies slow on his basic, and then has a chance to remove turn meter. So that's very, very powerful. And if he's the last member of your team alive, he's going to take 50% less damage from all sources. So Master Duo is a very good character, and he's going to come in at a C. Next up is Major Shot. Major Shot is going to get a C from us because he's your basic ranged fighter. He doesn't do anything particularly well or anything particularly terrible. His AoE abilities are relatively decent, but the way he really shines is with his leadership ability, as the only goblin leader that's currently available to us, and his leadership has a pretty decent chance to increase your enemy's cooldowns, so he's a relatively useful character, and for those reasons we're going to rate him at a C. Next up is Mar. Mar comes in as our last C character. He could have rated higher on this list if he had more utility besides his insane damage, but that's all he has, and you're going to want to keep him inside of an orc team so he can get the bonuses provided from a character like Tromgar. So while Mar does deal a lot of damage, that's all he does. So we're just going to give him a C. So the first character that comes up as a D is Amara. Amara deals very little damage and has very little utility outside of that, and at that on a goblin team. So do not invest very much in this character unless you're planning on playing goblins. Our next D character is Kagi. Kagi gets a D because he doesn't do much, and what he does kind of poorly. Just applying a few haste buffs, he's not very good, and he needs pride characters in order to have any opportunity to be remotely decent. So let's give Kagi a D. Next up is Vorian the Trickster. Vorian the Trickster could be higher on this list, but unfortunately, he relies on poison. And being a poison-reliant character means that he needs potency, and unfortunately none of his gear gives him that. So he has a very hard time applying the debuffs that he relies on. So for that reason, we're going to give Vorian a D. Fao comes in as our next D character. She has relatively low damage, especially for a ranged character, and her AoE is limited, and her dodged buff really isn't that powerful. Additionally, her passive relies on having a group full of pandas. So you don't really get much use with her outside of a panda team. So for that reason, we're going to rate Fao as a D. Our next D character is Mega Wheel. Now, I don't know much about this character because I haven't unlocked him yet. But from what I've read, he does okay damage and he makes you attack him and then he dies. He's not a particularly good tank and he's not a particularly good damage dealer. So I would rate him at a D. But if we get more information, we'll definitely review Mega Wheel in the future. Thalanne is another one of those characters who doesn't do anything particularly well. Now he does have one ability that does have the chance to hit 7 times, but you might need to apply some buffs because the damage on this ability is relatively low, and his passive is all about accuracy, which is not so great. So we're going to give Thalanne a D. Next up is Mor'Tha. Mor'Tha comes in as a D. Unfortunately, you're going to need to invest in her for the Orc event, but beyond that, she has limited healing, and that's all she does. So we're going to rate Mor'Tha as a D. Sharp is similar to Vol'ren in that he's not very good as a rogue type character. Now, while Sharp doesn't rely on debuffs, he does only have a single buff that he can apply, and his damage just simply isn't that good. So I recommend staying away from Sharp. He gets a D. So the last 4 characters I'm just going to go over and tell you that they're not worth investing in at all. And those characters are Adam, Old Lore, Robin Bad, and Sengiel. These characters simply just lag behind. Adam has an unreliable taunt and awful damage. Old Lore needs to apply a buff to himself before he can do anything because his multi-attack is on cooldown. Robin Bad just has incredibly low chances on his secondary abilities and low damage output to boot, and Sengiel relies on regeneration. So if you have someone who can dispel buffs on you, you're going to suffer because he has low damage and low healing. Alright guys, that's going to do it for our first tier list. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Everything helps the channel, and we cannot stress how much we appreciate it. So thank you again. Hope you guys have a great day, and remember, stay frosty.